The rivalry between Athens and Sparta is probably one of the most culturally enduring of the classical period. The two are seen as natural counterpoints to one another. Sparta being remembered as more austere, not concerned with material possessions, short on words, big on physical fitness, and focused on their land army. Athens is remembered by their temples, statues, many philosophical works, their democracy. They are perhaps seen as softer, more merchants than warriors, and focused on naval power. In reality, things were much more complicated. Athens won the Battle of Marathon on land almost single-handedly with only minor support from Plato, so they were hardly useless in close-quarters battle. Politically, only male citizens could vote, disenfranchising the vast majority of adults in Athens, so not exactly our version of democracy. Sparta, on the other hand, lost plenty of land battles, not just at Thermopylae. They were not unbeatable. The Spartiates certainly didn't say or write much, but contrary to their reputation, they did enjoy material possessions and could be bribed. The city-states of classical Greece were a patchwork of shifting alliances, coming together to oppose common enemies like Persia, but then fighting amongst each other. After ultimately beating Persia in 480 BCE, Athens took charge of the Delian League while Sparta had its own Peloponnesian League. The two coalitions squared off and traded some punches. Eventually, things culminated with a really big showdown between the superpowers in 431 BCE with the start of the Peloponnesian War. There was fighting on land, fighting on sea, cities burned. Our main account of this war comes from Thucydides, widely considered to be the first military historian. He was an Athenian commander for part of the war, but then he was exiled for failing to relieve a siege and so spent time in the Spartan bloc. He is obviously biased in a strange sense by his experiences. However, this meant he had direct military command experience, and he really tried to be fair and methodical. He seems to have interviewed eyewitnesses and sought out sources. It's fair to say that his history is considered fairly accurate. As has happened frequently since, the Peloponnesian War started not directly, but as a set of smaller flashpoints which escalated into all-out conflict. One of these was a smaller war between Corinth, in the Peloponnesian League, and Corcyra, one of Corinth's independent colonies on modern-day Corfu. Since they were outmatched and desperate, Corcyra sent a representative to ask Athens for help. The way Thucydides recalls it, the Corcyrans went with a classic salesman pitch, a little reminiscent of a Michael Scott or a Vault-Tec rep. Recreated in modern English, it might sound something like this. Respected citizens of Athens, I know you're all very busy people. I just have a short proposal from Corcyra that I think you'll find mutually beneficial. It's actually the first time ever that we're offering an exclusive, once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for a military alliance with us today. Now, why would you want a military alliance with little old Corcyra? Firstly, I know you'll always do the right thing. Corinth is the bad guy in all of this, and I know that Athens always comes out on the side of justice. Secondly, you would find us forever in your debt, and we would be eternally grateful to you. Thirdly, and I know you want to get down to the brass tacks, so here it is. It's well known that Athens is the greatest naval power in the world. But that's actually something that's in our wheelhouse as well. We're an up-and-coming power. We've just won our first engagement, and we've really exceeded our key performance indicators in this field. If we were to align our assets synergistically in this field, then we could really move the needle against your chief competitor, Corinth. We can also offer a great location as a stopover on the way to Sicily and Italy. I know I don't have to tell you how bad the optics would be if you were to let your enemy undermine you. Look, I'm sorry to say this, but war may be brewing, and you need to get your ducks in a row and act now to get ahead of this thing. Look, I know it can be scary to do the right thing sometimes. I'm here to tell you, don't doubt yourself. You are as strong as you believe yourself to be. We trust that you'll make the right decision for yourselves and for Athens. This is quite a smart pitch, and if you turn it down a bit, it's probably still a good way to go about a job interview. The Corinthians also got to address the Athenian assembly, but even today they sound quite unconvincing. According to Thucydides, they said things like, "Well, they started it, and I don't hear any of our other colonies complaining." Ultimately, the Corcyran arguments won out, and the Athenians moved to intervene on their behalf. I guess there's a lesson there as well. If you're a sales rep, better that the product you're selling is actually good. Now, Corinth had no option but to call in Sparta as their overlord. But this wasn't necessarily a done deal, so they still had to send a representative to try and convince the Spartians. This time they tried to use reverse psychology by telling the Spartans, frankly, how much Sparta sucked. Listen up, Spartans, I'm about to teach you a lesson about international politics because you ain't as clever as you think you are. We've been warning you about the threat from Athens time and again, but you won't listen. You won't act until it's too late. Athens have got their tendrils into Corcyra, they're besieging Potidaia, and you let them put up walls all around their city. You let them get sorted, and now they're taking over the rest of Greece. Instead of dealing with the problem, you're sitting back and letting things get worse. In fact, you're just as bad as the Athenians, because you're letting them get away with it. You're the only ones in Greece who would do this. You're the only ones in Greece who would let your opponent get twice as stronger before you take them on. Look, I'm not trying to be harsh with you, okay? We Corinthians are good friends, and we just want to let you know when you're making a mistake. But you don't know what a powerful enemy Athens is. They're geniuses when it comes to innovation. They make plans quick and follow them through even quicker. The only thing you Spartans are geniuses at is sitting back, keeping what you've got, and avoiding innovation. All they ever do is work hard, get out there, and graft. All you Spartans ever seem to be doing is sitting in your butts and procrastinating. You're lazy, they're hungry for adventure. You're afraid of losing what little you've got. The Athenians are afraid of missing out on expanding all of what they've got. The Athenians were born into this world to take no rest for themselves and to give no rest to others. They succeed often, and when they fail, they recover quickly. But you're still afraid to challenge them. If you want peace in the long term, you've got to go to war now. We're ready to follow, you've got to decide to lead. Make the right decision. The Peloponnese is counting on you. It's striking how different that is to the Corcyran pitch, but more importantly, it's dynamite for our stereotypes. This viewpoint has Athens' wealth not as a sign of decadence, but as a sign of hard work and graft. Meanwhile, the Spartans are uninventive, too scared of a proper showdown with their opponents, and plain lazy. That last part is more than just Corinthian opinion. Indeed, the Spartiates did not work, but relied on the forced labour of the Helots, the people of Messenia. This hampered them militarily in two ways. Firstly, they couldn't properly mobilize those Helots into the army, and they always had to leave behind troops to stop a possible rebellion breaking out, so their power projections suffered. Secondly, because they were so austere, rejected wealth, and so on, they didn't have the money to have a big fleet, to have siege engines, combined arms, and that sort of thing. In the end, Sparta did win the Peloponnesian War in 404 BCE, but only after accepting money from the Persians to build a fleet first. This certainly doesn't square with their image of defeating the tyrannical Persians. Sparta took over all the overseas possessions that had made Athens so rich. The Athenians lost their fleet and had to tear down their walls, meaning that the Spartans could walk in and seize the city if they wanted. Within 30 years, however, the hard-working Athenians had rebuilt the walls, started up a fleet again, and began to retake their old territories. Like the messenger said, they were quick to recover from a disaster. The Spartans, happy to sit at home as the Corinthians predicted, squandered their advantages. They eventually lost a field battle to a smaller number of Thebans. As a result, the Helots were freed, and after, Sparta was never a major power again. Athens, clearly, has been a center of culture for centuries and is the Greek capital city with 3 million inhabitants, while Sparta is now a small town. We might never know how accurately Thucydides recorded what the Corinthians said about Sparta, or if this was a majority opinion at the time. But even if we just judge the Spartans on what they were supposed to be good at, making war, they were pretty bad at it. Without a wealthy economy in peacetime, they could not turn out military materiel in wartime. Because they focused on personal fitness, they didn't innovate in tactics or strategy. They were bad operationally at things like amphibious landings, sieges, fighting in built-up areas, and combined arms. Their strict policies about who could and could not be a Spartiate meant that they ran out of fully fledged citizens. There were 10,000 at the time of the Peloponnesian War, but only 1,000 a few decades later. It's practically impossible to win a war without sufficient reserves. Having set out to become the greatest warriors, they don't seem to have had a plan for what to do if they succeeded and won a bunch of wars. In short, they are overrated, and you should aim to be an Athenian and not a Spartan.